It was a kind of a precarious condition, like inhuman conditions by which in a captive situation the plantations were started by the colonial government. So normal infrastructural projects like of the local government like Panchayati Raj institutions cannot have penetration to these tea estates since land is not available to them. Otherwise young generation are not ready, today's scenario are not ready to be in the garden. They have seen the flavor of mobilities and they are not fixed into the tea gardens itself, as they know that the labor market is very controlled market and there is a less flexibilities. But the real land, whatever they have been attached to that, because every group, every individual, every household has an attachment with the land.
A lot of workers were saying that per day income is around, is somewhere between 200 to 250.
What corporate have got a logic is that we are paying the social cost, that's why we are not being able to pay. But that is theoretically logic only. Practically, state is only providing the ration, even healthcare and education.
Hello everyone, welcome to our new podcast series called The Edge, brought to you by the Museum of Digital Society in collaboration with the Digital Empowerment Foundation. With this podcast series, we bring to you India's story of digital development. In this episode specifically, we'll talk about the tea garden communities of Northern West Bengal. And to discuss that, I have with me Dr. Abdul Hannan. Sir teaches at the University of Sikkim. And my name is Maitri. I represent the Museum of Digital Society. Sir is not only somebody who has extensively worked on this topic, but he also belongs to the region itself. So he also brings in a lot of contextual and nuanced understanding of the region, the challenges and the opportunities that the region deals with. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us. I will start with one of the most important questions that my colleagues were also very interested to know. आप कौन सी चाय पीते हैं?
Milk tea?
नहीं, मतलब दार्जिलिंग टी या?
We take Dwar's tea, cities. I mean, in different way you can call it. So the normal tea is popular to everyone. Is a liquor tea.
Liquor tea.
This is called liquor tea.
Okay.
Otherwise, Darjeeling tea basically is a flavored tea. So in the plains, normally we are habituated with taking the liquor tea, which is CTC. Okay.
CTC. Oh.
CTC teas. Otherwise, the flavored tea is called orthodox tea.
Okay.
Right.
Why is it called that?
It's a way of manufacturing the tea.
Okay. Yeah. Sir, I mean, tea is such an integral part of our life, our everyday life. But we also understand that there is a lot of complex and layered history when it comes to India's tea. I would want you to explain to our viewers and sort of, take us through the history of the tea garden and the communities from the colonial period to the present.
Tea economy or tea states or tea gardens per se has a historical connectedness. You will find it started with the colonial government and British India sometime way back in 1830s and 40s. And it was initially started with the experimental basis. And there are different pockets of, particularly in Assam and West Bengal, initiated with the Assam Tea Company. And it basically flowed with the foreign capital. Whereas managerial class and foreign capital started with supplied by the local labor. Local labor means Indian labor, and the land is supplied by the then Indian government, the British government. And it used to be basically large areas of land under the tea estates, particularly with thousands or hundreds of acres of land. That was the setup. And the laborers basically, since in the local communities, these are the forest fringes, and the waste land rules basically made the land available to the tea gardens areas, by which the colonial state facilitated the land under tea cultivations. Now, what happened is that the local labor was not available at that point of time. Local, in a sense, the resident communities who are living in Duars and other areas. So you will find the labor is coming from the Chotanagpur regions, particularly the tribes, with whom the tea initiated. So it was a kind of a precarious condition, like inhuman conditions, by which, in a captive situation, the plantations were started by the colonial government then. But you will find in the post-independence period, you will find a different kind of liberations. You will find the Plantation Labor Act, then Tea Act was enacted in Indian government in the independence period, and thereby you find some kind of entitlement of the tea communities who were living in the plantation areas. You will find the facilities of the wage negotiated mechanisms, like through tripartite agreements and all. You will also find some kind of a health and housing and the education systems, though it was not up to the mark, but it was there as per the system Plantation Labor Act enabled. But you will also find there is a third phase in the post-independence period. Thereafter, things were going as the Britishers left us. But in the post-independence period, there is another phase in the post-90s, particularly in the economic liberalization phase. You will find the huge amount of, because most of the traditional areas were already covered during British period, and as well as post-colonial period also it continued. But there were some areas, because Indian population grew and we are in the expanding population in the third phase of demographic transitions. So India had a huge domestic market and consumption levels also grew. So to meet the domestic demand, the Tea Board of India as a policy started the new areas of expanding tea. And this is in the post-90s, particularly in Northeast, particularly Assam and West Bengal, and followed by other Northeastern states. You'll find huge expansion of the tea area in the form of small-scale farming communities at the vicinity of tea estates. Initially, it started with the nucleus tea estate model, brought back from Indonesian model, and thereafter it increased and expanded. So the current scenario, you have three phases. One is the colonial plantations, and thereafter post-independence, and the post-90s. And in this, the land, labor, capital, all those have shaped, and it has been emerging in a different directions time to time. So it will be kept on it is a kind of a dynamic process. So you will also find post-90s, when you are coming with the small holding sectors, you will find a lot of out migrations also simultaneously. Because tea garden areas, whatever form of infrastructure increase, but you will find a lot of out migration is also taking place. So the laboring community in geography, normally what we call is the labor is a special fix, which was true in maybe the 60s, 70s, but post-90s this is not the case. The labor is flexible. So the new generation of the tea community, you will find they are much more mobile. They are not too much of attached with the tea garden. So particularly the youth, either male, female, they will be out migrating the cities down south like Kerala, Tamil Nadu, or northern Indian cities. So they will be coming and they will be doing urban petties. Of course, this is an informal sector. They will be joining. There is not much in social security, but they have an opportunity because of mobility. They have found out a new path of other than the tea. So the occupational diversion is also taking place. So in the post-90s, you will find two basically routes. One is the occupational diversity among the tea garden communities, and the land diversification is also coming out in the post-90s in the form of you can say small growers or small scale growers. These are the new changes that are happening in the tea economy as on day.
Sir, right. If we look at the present day picture, who are the main key actors who govern the tea garden ecosystem? Like how the tea gardens are currently governed?
Yeah, in this you can directly say that any form of cultivating tea, they are being governed directly by the Tea Board of India, because any cultivation has to be registered with the Tea Board of India. However, there are exceptional, because all the small growers in Assam, West Bengal, there is not much of regulations on this. They have grown without any registration. So many of the growers are not registered. But as a tea estate, they are essentially registered. All the tea estates, big tea estates like with the colonial enterprise, they were registered with the Tea Board of India. So they are the first regulatory agency or governing authorities, and they come under the Ministry of Commerce, Government of India. Now the land as a resource, which is a state subject, because India is a federal country, so we have different subjects like state lease, central lease, and concurrent lease. So land is a state subject. So land is facilitated by the state government. So it used to be given land on lease for 30 years. Earlier it used to be 100 years. So long-term lease is given. So this way the state government directly come into picture. Now, with the coming of the 73rd Amendment and 74th Amendment, we have a local government, the district administration, block administration, panchayat administrations. So they are also part of governing this institution, because any kind of a land is being leased out or get releasing. Once lease is expires, old lease expires, the new lease. So that means district magistrate report through block and subdivision administrations and the panchayat administration, it has to be gathered, the feedback, and then lease is renewed. This is how the process is on. So in that way, the local government comes into in picture. Apart from this, you will also find day-to-day management affairs, wage, bonus, and all kinds of occupational working conditions. You will find trade unions in between. You will find local labor commissioner's office. Then you will find land departments. You will also get civil society organizations, NGOs working towards the betterment of the communities. And of course, within the garden community, the laborers, the stakeholders, the managerial staff. Then you have administrative staff, the finance they have. So these are the people who are playing key role in the tea economy, basically.
Yeah. Sir, in the previous question, you were talking about, how pre-independence, post-independence, things have changed a little bit. Right now, if we talk about the tea garden communities, what has really changed, both positively, negatively, and do you also see some of the colonial practices being continued even today?
See, one should look into, because most of the gardens in Bengal and Assam, particularly in Duars and remote areas of Upper Assam and all, they're very remote. Firstly, they are very much deficient of the road network. The mobility is hindered because of you do not have a service of bus or something, like you will have to have a private vehicle or some kind of a walkable distance to coming to the major centers, or some kind of a e-rickshaws account. So the road network is not high. In that way, these are the constraints to the tea garden community. Then similarly, in the garden areas, since the land is leased out by the state to the company, so normal infrastructural projects like of the local government, like Panchayati Raj institutions, cannot have penetration to these tea estates, since land is not available to them. Like schemes, like development schemes like Indira Awas Yojana, PMGSY, Prime Minister Road Sarak Yojana, and then all those major schemes are not accessible to these areas. So there has been a debate now coming up to restructuring of the tea industry. Now restructuring, what we mean is to that, like tea estates, obviously they also have right, corporates also have rights, since they have been invested on the land for the cultivation. So tea area, maybe factory area, maybe their infrastructure investment, whatever has happened, that should remain with the lease. But rest of the village garden community, the tea community, labor and the households, that may be treated as a normal village. So if that land is not leased out, so that tea garden, with the restructuring process, you can have an imaginary lines that normal villages as accessible by the Panchayati Raj institutions, same way they can be also accessible. In that way, developmental schemes can be more accessible to them, and as well as they can be better governed. So they can get a feel of the governance structures reaching to them. Otherwise, they are governed by the company only. And as per the Plantation Labour Act, as you know, that health, education and rationing, all those things are given by the company as per the entitlement. However, you will find the crisis in tea industry in 2001 onwards. You will find most of the major tea growing states, particularly West Bengal, Assam, Tripura, including Kerala, many tea estates were closed down. And some of the, particularly in the southern states, they have somehow reopened. But in West Bengal, Assam, there are closed gardens. There's a phenomena of closure and abandoned gardens. In those gardens, what is happening is that land remain abandoned, and that is a cause of worry. So either if you go to any of the closed gardens, then you will find that you interview the tea garden community, you will find first thing they ask is that not the infrastructure first, they let the garden run first, because they have been habituated with that system, so that they get weekly some kind of payments to run their families. Because particularly after the closure of the gardens, you will find the older generations and the women who do not normally move out migrate. Otherwise, young generation are not ready, today's scenario, are not ready to be in the gardens. They have seen the flavor of mobilities. They have seen the taste of the occupational diversifications. So they are more of frequently, and they are not fixed into the tea gardens itself, as they know that the labor market is very controlled market, and there is a less flexibilities, and then the bargaining is low because there is less opportunities available to them. So they want to out migrate. So, but older generation, if you talk to them in the close, they will be finding, okay, garden to be reopened. So in that light, there is a huge amount of labor force and workforce who also need to be given a decent living and livelihood opportunities. In that light, the restructuring is very much essential in terms of taking the villages and the communities to be normal village community and state, and tea state, let it be as an organized industry where the wage and works and other things only work, whereas the health, education, other opportunities can be taken by the state. And anyway, by the close and abundant tea state in West Bengal, the ration is provided by the PDS system, targeted PDS system. Then healthcare, since the tea states cannot provide much of the healthcare benefits, so that the district hospitals and all weekly basis, they go to the tea gardens and giving the healthcare. Similarly, some of the primary schools which are closed, so the government primary schools are running. So indirectly, state is already there. The only thing is formally it has to be organized, so that the corporate industry, which in the tea, what they claim is that social cost, actually the social cost is disappearing by functionally. So it has to be maybe probably in a black and white, that let it be restructured, so that they do not say about the social cost. They only remain with the industrial organizations, and the social cost, other normal villages you treat as a normal village, and all the developmental schemes can be accessible to them. This is how we can imagine the future of the tea industry. So that wage levels automatically increase if the corporates doesn't require to this social cost, health, education, other things. Because if the state governments or the governments giving the schemes of healthcare or medical facilities to those normal villages, it will be same to them, so that company doesn't incur any cost on them, and or targeted PDS system. So that rest of this, in that way, the wages and benefits and maybe bonus and all those things will automatically improve upon.
So since we're talking about how controlled the labor market is, and we're also talking about wages, what kind of wages are we looking at when it comes to tea garden communities? And how are they different from the rest of the world?
No, normally the wage was negotiated through collective bargaining process. And in that way, in the tea states, particularly the organized industry, it used to be the trade unions, management, and the respective state government represented through the labor commissioner's office in the wage negotiations. Similarly, in the yearly bonus negotiations, it happens. That is the normal wage negotiations. Now, in addition to that, since these are remote areas, so some of these public basic essentials were given the PDS system through the company. That was the practice. And then also firewood and to maintain the labor requirement, they also given the quarters for the families. So this is how the labor conditions were maintained. But what I mean to say is that when the wage is negotiated, that means if you are taking out the healthcare and other cost which is involved by the company, if that is taken out, that means the negotiations will go better actually, in terms of wages or benefits, and the industrial, it will be treated than any other industry. So that this industry which has been also, in other words, also if you take other side of the stories, because some of the private companies are looking after all those, like in Assam almost 800 tea estates, in Bengal around 280 tea estates. So logically every company, that means there is a huge employment. The private sector is lessening the burden of the local governments.
Yeah.
So the only thing is the conditions have to be improved, right? So if we want to improve the condition, that means we need to rethink that where the obstacle lies. And many times in the literature, any kind of negotiation tables in the wage or bonuses, that means we need to, and then Tea Board of India has a policy document, they said in the unorganized sector, the smallholder, that is called the low cost model. Then this tea estate is called a high cost model. And high cost model is because of the social cost, education, health and other things. So now if we take the education and health, it will be like small growers. So the wage automatically goes increase because the negotiation will be much smoother on that.
Okay, but sir, as we also visited, when we visited the field, we talked to a lot of people, and then a lot of workers were saying that the per day income is around, is somewhere between 200 to 250, and you're saying that is because the other costs, education, healthcare, etc., is usually taken care by the company, right? But even if the education and healthcare, etc., is being taken care by the company, do you still feel that 250 rupees is good enough to survive?
Wages, basically, it is not as per even MG Narega wage.
Yeah.
So it has been the lower side of these things.
Yeah.
But what corporate have got a logic is that we are paying the social cost, that's why we are not being able to pay. Now, if by structure itself we take out this, that means that logic doesn't work. But that is theoretically logic only. Practically, state is only providing the ration, even healthcare and education. So what we are actually thinking, many of the scholars may be thinking that why don't we cut that next, because otherwise what happens is that if you go to the tea estates, that means you need to take a permission. Now, once that is taken, the communities and the villages are taken out, when the patta, land and all kinds of mapping and surveying is done, that means tea estate will be given leased only that much of land other than the villages. That means that do not come under. So if you go for a survey, you don't need your permission. Or if you want to make the village healthcare and all those things, road connectivity, the panchayat doesn't require the company's permission. So you have a better access to develop the infrastructure. And first condition of improving the bargaining power is to bring some kind of a developmental activities on the area, remote areas, like roads and other things, and the services will automatically improve. So that social cost logic by the companies will not work in future in that way. Otherwise, one can say that in the close and abundant tea states, it is only the state government which are providing the rations. And in fact, in the closed gardens, some of the tea gardens, there is a scheme called Folai. The locked out garden, the gardens till the settlement reached, the 1500 rupees are given by state government. But that is called interim measures. So that is also a kind of a wastage of the development. So instead of that, you restructure it and give it to and let the community enjoy their freedom. So that they have attached to the lands which they have been. And it has also been happening that if you go to Duars particularly, there are some schemes announced by the government of West Bengal by Chasundari projects in the name of rehabilitation measure to those laboring households. But this is outside the tea garden land. And it seems that is also a kind of a misnomer to them. In a sense, the garden community do not want to change their habitat. So they want to remain whatever they are occupying the land, maybe 2 decimil, maybe 2.5 decimil or whatever decimil they have. But the real land, whatever they have been attached to that, because every group, every individual, every household has an attachment with the land. Yeah. So if you give that attachment with the paper in the form of land patta, what will happen is that they can also, apart from the developmental estate schemes, one can also mortgage and also make, suppose if I have a patch of land and I have a right of land, that means I will be constructing, mortgaging, and I can get commercial loans and do some infrastructure activities or economic activities. That is possible with their generations. So that will also keep the new generation open. One side is occupational diversification and also economic upliftments. But today's scenario, that opportunity is not available because the land is with the company. And that's why we are thinking, I mean, many of us are thinking on that line that let us have some kind of a restructuring and then negotiate with the state agency as well as the companies who are running these tea estates. So that will be win-win situations.
Yeah, and would also probably solve the migration problem a little bit. Do you think so?
Migration will not. Migration is an every time. Even not other than tea estate also there is migration. So migration for various reasons. Migration could be for livelihood opportunities. Migration could be for economic opportunities. So it can be. That is a natural phenomena. So that we cannot say that it will be stopped because the vertical movement takes place. Every group, every community will be aspiring for the betterment. So that let it be remain with this. But the industrial space and the community space and the local government, how to integrate them and how to make them independent of each other also, so that a proper synergy takes place among them.
Sir, with all whatever we've talked about, I still would want to understand that while the company is taking care of, a majority of things, what are the lacks that we still encounter? What are the fundamental rights of the community that we still feel and see being compromised? In terms of healthcare, in terms of education, how well, the social problem is being solved by these companies?
One way one could look at, like most of the cases, the tea garden community remain aloof from the mainstream. Broadly, you will find the trade union leaders outside the communities, irrespective of Bengal and Assam. They are like Adivasis are the working communities, but trade union leaders will be from Bengali community, from urban areas, who has every wishes to be thinking of betterment, but they are outside the communities. And similarly with the state of Assam. So what happened is that a leadership should come out from them to restore their rights, and every group needs to be addressed. Either Adivasi communities or any other communities or minorities. So the community representative will be filled if their leadership comes from the community itself. Then the gap will be bridged more. Otherwise, there is a distance between the mainstream community and the community who are at large in the tea gardens. So this is one of these observations.
When we're talking about communities, within the definition of communities, who do we see being most impacted? Like women, Adivasis, who exactly?
Of course, Adivasis, Santals, Oraos, Mundas within the tribes, and then within them, women, of course, are vulnerable in terms of occupations because they are less mobile compared to their counterparts. But one thing also to be told here, like in Bengal, you will find Adivasis as considered to be tea tribes. So they have a full enjoyment of reservations and inclusive measures of the constitutional guarantees. Whereas in the counterpart, in case of Assam, they are not considered to be tea tribes. So in other words, since independence, if they are considered to be tribes, how much reservation benefited to them, this is one. We need to be, mapping them, or we need to be sensing them, we need to be understanding them. But if you compare to Bengal and Assam, that means if other state, neighborhood state, these are the two major players actually. One is state is contributing around 50% of production of the tea economy. Other state is considered 25. So one state tea, the laborers are considered to be tea tribes. The other state they are not. So that means if they are not, that means they are deprived of last post-independence period as a reservation policy itself. Yeah. If you are addressing today, that means you took 70 years as a state to recognize them. and that too is still under considerations. So there are a lot of mobilization taking place in the state of Assam for considering the tea tribes, but let's see how it works. So in terms of rights, because you will find in Bengal, whatever, of course, wages and other benefits are low in tea industry, but some of the officers coming from Adivasi communities also, Bengal government and other, you will find. But there is less upliftment or vertical movement of the officer level in the tea garden community to the governance, other sectors, you will not find much. So it may be because of the considering their ST status or something, but larger study can prove this. But this is a kind of a synoptic observation which I have noticed on the ground.
So we were talking about entitlements, Chasundri Yojana, etc. How well do you think, those are accessible to the communities, and how well have they been implemented in the tea gardens?
So long, the Chasundri project in 2-3 places, this project is going on. One place which you observed in 2023, we interviewed them. It is nearby Alipurduar district, one of the tea states we had an interventions. So they were given like single flat with the kitchens or something. But what we noticed with the interactions, because this is outside the tea state, basically, they were restored, rehabilitated in other areas. What is happening is that since garden is closed, so what they said is that this quota itself is insufficient if there is no regular work. So what they wish is the particularly older generation of women who remain at households, other people are going southern states and all, migrated. So what they wish that first the garden should be open. So the regular work should happen, this will automatically will follow. Otherwise they remain in the quarters, but they need to work on the extraction industry, like sand, stones and all. And in the extraction industry, many things are undercarpeted. There's a proper auctioning and local supplies are taking place. So they are under with some kind of a political class by which some kind of piece-rated wages they need to work, and there is no other work available those remote areas. So what they feel is that firstly they should have the Chasundri project within the wherever they were living, there only it should have been constructed. This is one. The second could be is that the gardens which are closed, that should be run so that they get regular work, so that they are in the negotiating levels. Even the wages are low, even then 250 also they get, they are ready, but the garden should be running. If garden is closer, they cannot go far off places. Otherwise, in those regular workers, but they are working as a far off places as a casual laborers, like seasonal worker in the other tea gardens. So their rights are hampered in that way. They were regular workers, since their garden is closed, so they become a temporary worker to other gardens. So this kind of a cyclic process is also on. So the first demand on those kind of areas is that whatever garden is closed and abandoned, they should be, now government of West Bengal has, I think last year, they have notified that SOPs for the opening the closed and abandoned gardens. So if the proper SOPs are followed and the gardens are reopened and rehabilitated, so I think things will improve. But that SOP has to be followed in true spirit actually. Whoever is taking care, whatever the benefits and terms and conditions, and it has to be displayed by the district magistrate's office that which are the gardens are closed and which are to be re-auctioned, and the interested party who are there, what is their capital, this, that. In that way, in a transparent manner, that can be reopened. That might solve many of the problems to a large extent in those remote parts.
What are the political problems that the region deals with? Like you were mentioning that there is a lot of political issues as well.
No, if we trace back, if we read Professor Khaka long before, he said dualistic model, dualistic economy. So the local community is different in historical past and the tea garden community. So the local community has a Panchayati Raj institution on stronghold, and these communities are in the tea estates has been historically in captive season. So that openness is not there. So if they are rehabilitated, somebody else is repenting a panchayat, now gradually they are also coming out. So it's a kind of a first entry and the late entry. There's a difference. Suppose if you are a son or daughter from a privileged sections and coming to the university education system, and somebody coming from a agrarian class and coming to the university, within the same classroom, the excellence level will differ because you have a late entry or is a kind of a different kind of a experience of world experiences. So in that way, somebody is already occupying the Panchayati Raj institution much before, and some are coming late. So there is a kind of a strong hold on that at the community level, also occupying the local space in the governance actually. So that kind of a imaginary line one has to really draw. That of course we have a policy like women reservation in Panchayati Raj institution, we have a SC, ST reservations. So that might eliminate, but government needs to take care of all those things, that whether the groups or the communities are better represented or not. So it is not only by elections, by functionally, suppose a ward member or a panchayat member is represented, whether he or she able to influence whatever he is wishing to implement the local panchayat, that needs to be looked at the local government and the district administration and the governments, state governments.
With regards to the political question, I also wanted to ask that when we go for intervention in a lot of these areas, we've also faced the issue of multiple stakeholders just not being able to gather together. Like, what is the issue? What is the underpinning tension that is there, due to which multi-stakeholderism is somewhere not possible, or at least a little challenging?
In literature, we are very familiar with something called top-down approach, no?
Yeah.
So the local situations are different and top-down approaches. So if we really want something multi-dimensional approach and multi-stakeholder approach, that means it is the state government which has to be brought in. And if we directly go to the panchayat and the district government, nobody will be part of it, because one way or other, some kind of a negotiation takes place between the plantation industry as well the local administration as well the local political class. But if state government on top side, if some kind of a lobbying takes place, in that way if you go, that means that it will be a compulsion to the local government to work on it, either district administration, block and a subdivision administration, as well as the political class. And then stakeholder obviously will be a part of it, because otherwise they will be assisting factor of each other actually. There is a called complementarity of each other, na? So they complement each other. So why do you do? Because you go once, but they remain in the field for all along, either political class or the local governments or in the industry where it is situated. So they are 365 days. We may go for 1 day or 2 days or 10 days or a month. So they remain there. So they have some kind of a negotiation labels also, and they complement each other at times during when crisis occurs, any kind of crisis. So in that light, state administration has to be taken on board, and then coming out down to the district administration and the Panchayati Raj institutions and play some major role. And that might get better impact. Otherwise, it will be a very smaller, and at many times it may not get much of the results. Some will come on the table, some is absent. So, but when you look into, suppose like a small grower sector, there is a Ministry of Commerce through the Tea Board of India has notified that district level green leaf price monitoring committees. When I asked through the Tea Board and local board of Dinajpur district administration, there hardly any meeting takes place. Even in Assam also, district, where the officer of the board is the member secretary and district magistrate are the part of the chairman of the committee by Government of India notifications. But that pressure is not there. So accountability, transparency, that needs to be working, and that way we can make it happen.
But So usually this is the exact approach that we sort of want to always counter, right? Like the top down approach. We want the change from to happen from ground because they are more informed. That is also one understanding that we usually go for. So why do you think that the people, as part of your opinion, like why do you think that the people who are, sort of on the field, they're not as accountable as probably the state could be? Why is that?
There is a concept called democratic centralization. So it is a kind of a democratic centralization from the state from top. So if you do not go through them, it's a democratically decentralized, but democratic control is also there. So one has to really work with the governments in that, then only it will work. Otherwise, because you can see one way. Suppose you have auction centers. Siliguri has auction center. You have a Kolkata auction centers. You can say how much of tea is being sold to Siliguri auction center or Guwahati, and you can sense which are the companies head office where they are located. So you will find, and then recently people have been demanding the Jalpaiguri, there is a tea auction center, but tea is never reached there. Jalpaiguri, most of the Doers Gardens is in Jalpaiguri district, right? But hardly any tea reached there. So a kind of a question that where the corporate offices are there also, how they want to deal with, and how the regulatory agency like Tea Board of India want to deal with. They have a sub-regional office, like if you go to Dinajpur, my district, there is a Tea Board office. But this is being controlled by the Tea Board of India, Kolkata. You have an executive director office. For your information also, in 2012-13, Tea Board of India made the special directorate, that small Goa development, they named it as SGDD, Small Goa Development Directorate, and they opened in 67 SRO, sub-regional offices. And within 2 to 3 years, they have closed down. When the gardens on the small Goa have expanded in different geographies, they need the services of the board, but they have closed down many of these. So that means the stakeholders are also not aware, because many of the small farmers are not registered with the tea board. In the similar line, with the labouring communities as well as the tea garden communities, that kind of a unawareness is also there. So the local government has to be a little proactive in the district and block and panchayat administration. And if any intervention is required, one essentially has to go through them and make a party to be part of it. And see, these are the closer, and we have got this much of feedbacks. We want this kind of, and there is a possibility of this. If any agency could show them results, then there is possibility they will listen. Otherwise, everybody has some kind of a jurisdiction not to allow something new suddenly, so that it might backfire to many. So nobody wants to take care of that kind of a risk.
So you took the example of a classroom. When we look at the governance ecosystem, which is now largely being turned into e-governance, a lot of people, a lot of communities that were initially marginalized and are still marginalized in some way or the other, they still don't have access to a lot of these resources, a lot of these mediums through which they have to kind of access other things, which could be entitlements or schemes. And here we feel that digital is something that really, kind of dominates the picture. So when you look at the tea garden communities in terms of their access to resources, access to digital infrastructure, access to tools, where do you think they stand? And what are they missing out on just because, they were considered probably a little later, like a lot of communities in India, that are living on the peripheries.
No, firstly, see, one should remember that there was a government of India schemes, the Jan Dhan Yojana, that everybody should have a bank accounts. Now, bank account doesn't mean only having bank account. Bank account means a functionally bank account. So if I am working in my organizations, so my payment is being made through bank account. Similarly, if tea industry is an organized industry, so all kinds of payment and deductions can take through digital platforms, and accordingly digital clients should be given. And since tea industry has a huge workforce, so the app-based solutions, every garden or cluster of gardens, they can make the app-based solutions. But one can say, okay, the network is an issue, or something like you do not have ATMs of cash collections, these that. So there are platforms by which online payment system has also, reach into the rural areas also. If you go to a pan shop, even then you pay Google Pay or something like this. So if the companies want to make an efficient management system and improve their management efficiently and work culture, productivity, they can do all kinds of implementations. Of course, initially they need to have some kind of a support from the company itself. Let's say we are giving some kind of a benefits to the, let's say in West Bengal, we are giving Kanyasri, the cycles during marriage, those schemes. So similarly, for those sectoral interventions, the governments can offer that whoever is registered permanent employer, they can provide one-time handsets, and company can provide the recharge facilities and all kinds of facilities. And gradually they will, because a company, a 1,000 acres company is a huge geography within a locality. So the laborers working, coming, going, lunchtime break, this, that, lot of work time is wastage. So if you are making digital interventions, they don't need to, they can give digital attendance and digital, connections with the holidays or kind of a breaks and all kinds of things. So that by sitting at one place you can manage and you can make the efficient. In similarly, the payment system on the laborer side also payment and other benefits, so that they can sit at the households. So who are the beneficiaries? Who are the beneficiaries of the bonus or something? Through the app it can be managed. And so far as infrastructure is concerned, that if village communities or within the tea estate community, that if the 3 settlements are there, if they are taken out from with the restructuring, what I was talking about, if they are taking out from the lead system and they are given patta, and so those villages are independent. So all those private companies who are providing the Geo, you can say Airtel or whoever, they can go make towers and network facility will be addressed by them. So nobody, even company doesn't need to invest. Any company wants to go and increase their network to make their more and more network, na?
Yeah, network is a serious
So in that way, they will invest on the network. Similarly, Panchayat will improve the road network. The tele network will be the companies, because we have already gone to privatization model. So in that way, it can be improved upon. The only thing is the handset can be, if they cannot afford. So instead of you are giving gas, you can also give a handsets through schemes. And company can give the app solutions and all those. Like we are also giving free apps, free softwares. So they can also, company provided their company some apps and then they can manage.
Yeah. I think like digital literacy in general would also probably come as a challenge.
This may be a challenge initially, but what is happening in the post-90s, as I said, that younger generations are moving to the cities. So everybody has a handsets. So if there are few project garden is taken care initially, and gradually with the results, one can implement other ways. And states and the Tea Board as a regulatory agency and the private players like you all are working on DEF and all, they can have a kind of a win-win situations, the interventions. So if that kind of a negotiation, okay, these are the 3 gardens are closed, so we are opening restructuring model, and tea estates is given through SOP to some company. Then these are the other areas, will be the other panchayat will look after the development plan. In that way, few areas, otherwise it is closer. People are moving out. People are, in some cases, people are having diseases, dying, many cases, who cannot move out. So instead of having those experiences, you can have a win-win project-based solutions and then come out with the new results.
So we talked about the opportunities there, the challenges as well as the opportunities. But I mean, I would want to end the podcast with one last question, which is that while there are definitely a lot of opportunities, but that are related to digital, but what are the cautions sort of we should definitely have in mind when we are looking at large scale digital interventions? We are saying that along with gas we should also give smartphones, but like what are the cautions we should be looking at as well?
Cautions is basically if you are making, because in the tea garden colonies, at least you will have a basic profiling of the educational levels and the youth who are, because most of the houses, if you go, either son or daughter is moving outside, so they can handle. So you can start with those families in the tea states or digital interventions who have sons or daughters who have been out migrating, because if they are out migrants, they must be handing over some of the handset at home and they will be constantly communicating each other. That means they are in other way, some bit of digital intervention has already taken place in those families, and through that some kind of a group approach can be taken in that villages, those settlements or hamlets, and accordingly it can be networked. So to make it success in that way, we can go wherever families have a out migrants. Those families will give a better results, likely to give better results in a sense, because they have got a taste of digital technology. Because if my son is there in Bangalore or my daughter is there in Bangalore, that means I must be talking through friends, this, that. So I know what is the advantage of it. So I take the positive approach of having this. So in that way, the most of the tea gardens, it can be looked into.
Yeah. But I mean, the question that I also want to ask is that sometimes, with large scale digital solutions, we also kind of marginalized communities that are already marginalized in some way or the other. So, do you see some of the issues emerging with these communities getting more and more access to digital, but more and more immersed also in the digital world?
If you are going through panchayats, now one way one can look into the panchayats, as this is a dualistic model, no, as I said. So panchayats in the vicinity mostly will be the local communities who have not been working in the historically in the tea gardens, and tea garden community obviously different. So that power relation to be looked at actually when you are giving to them smartphones and these, whether some kind of a because it might, in Duars what is happening is, Duars is a kind of a geography. The most of the rivers coming from the hills, passing through Duars, reaching to Bangladesh plains and going to the sea, right? So in that phase, in the river, in the Duars region, you will find enough deposition of sand and the gravels coming up. And it is a huge cost because nearby towns, there is a cost involved in it. Now, most of the local government agencies and many of the local level, leadership level, they are engaged with the extraction industry, either formal route or informal routes. And tea garden community, so far as they are not part of it. So there is a power relation in terms of economic opportunities. So as tea states have been remain their workforce intact, so certain conditions were set. So similarly, when you want the extraction industry to be on, that means labor force to be there. So it might, when you make a lot of interventions, it gives a lot of transparency. So when there would be some kind of a transparency which might lead to cause of worry of some of these economies, local level economies, which is formal or informal, that kind of a question has to be cautioned actually. So that the power relation might backfire, that okay, one side you are empowering, other side is being affected because of their incomes or because, so that might be a kind of a situations by which the local governments who are involved in the political cloud, they might not be happy also at times. So state's role in this way very important. The state government has to be pushing and accordingly take care of the situations.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. I know it's very late in the evening, but thank you so much for making time.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure.
And for, of course, like taking us through this very important story, like all the nuances that you've shared from the history to the present. They're very important for all of us to understand. And yeah, and thank you so much for joining us. This was Edge for you.